and learn it with you. Keys Mobile, let's connect and grow with food. Fun and news, there's so much to know. Keys Mobile, with your time to shine together, we build a future that's fine from tasty treats. Build Steve trees to justice we seek, building bridges every day of the week. With Keyshawn's light, we carry the flame, empowering voices, we're making a name. Keys Mobile, let's connect and grow with food. Fun and news, there's so much to know. Keys Mobile, with your time to shine together, we build a future that's fine from tasty treats to justice we seek, building bridges every day of the week. With Keyshawn's light, we carry the flame, empowering voices, we're making a name. Keys Mobile, it's your time to shine together, we build a future too, that's kind. So hit the play, enjoying the Keys Mobile crew, making waves, bringing change all for you. Keys Mobile, Keys Mobile. Keys Mobile, Keys Mobile. And welcome to Keys Mobile, where the friend begins. News and stories for families and friends. We're here for the community to share.
Turn on the screen, hey world, it's Keys, serving daily doses of vibes and breeze. News, community, and connection so tight, bringing you the glory from day to night. We gather the stories from every side, ride the waves of truth on this electric tide. Commit to making the world feel small, catch it all on Keys, we got you, y'all. At Keys' mobile show, we're living out loud, resourceful and proud, attracting the crowd. Entertainment, news, it's all in one place. Come join the fun, let's set the pace. From social threads to the community posts, we link up the hearts coast to coast. We build the ties in our local scene. Keys' mobile keeps it super clean. Swipe up for the latest, scroll down for more. We're more than news, this is community lore. In a world that's big, we make it cozy and bright. Keys' mobile show flies you through the night. At Keys' mobile show, we're living out loud, resourceful and proud, attracting the crowd. Entertainment, news, it's all in one place. Come join the fun, let's set the pace.
The entire community.
8 dead, all 8 were members of the Roden family.
And all kinds of rumors were coming to the surface.
For all I know, it could have been somebody that came up and hugged me at the funeral. I don't trust anybody at all.
Those that were close to the Roden family stopped talking to the media. It just became this really strange situation where time was passing, no answers.
It just chills you to think about the calculation that goes into something like this.
The county commissioner said, people come to us as county leaders and think that we have all the answers. He said, we didn't know anything. Pike County is southeastern Ohio, about 60 miles east of Cincinnati. It's relatively flat to begin, very rural. Then you sort of get into the Appalachian side of that part of southeastern Ohio, and it becomes filled with hills and valleys and pretty rugged terrain. Having grown up not terribly far away from there, it's a bit off the beaten path, but certainly people who live there love it, and generational families, stay in those kinds of areas for a long time.
Breaking news out of Pike County, Ohio. A mass shooting today in different locations. We have team coverage today here
on the morning of April 22nd, 2016. Police are called to Union Hill Road in Pike County, Ohio.
There's blood all over the house. Okay. My brother-in-law's in the bedroom, and I beat the hell out of him.
Never have we lost so many people to a murder or murderers in this county.
6 adults and 1 teenager are found murdered execution style across 3 properties. They're all members of the same family, the Roden family.
The number of members of the Roden family live in a certain way, kind of together, in their own separate spaces, as families often do in rural settings. They lived in a part of Pike County that bordered some other counties. This is a family that clearly is incredibly close-knit.
Cousins Christopher Roden Sr. and Gary Roden are found dead at the same location. Christopher's ex-wife, Dana Roden, is discovered at her home with 2 of their 3 children, Hannah Roden and 16-year-old Christopher Roden Jr. The bodies of their 3rd child, Clarence Frankie Roden, and his fiancée, Hannah Gilly, are found at a 3rd property on the same street.
Sources were reaching out saying, hey, you need to head east. We arrived at Union Hill Road, where it was all cordoned off. I recall talking to one police officer saying, hey, do you think that we're safe standing here? One officer said, you don't have anything to worry about. And I think as the hours went on, I recall asking a similar question to another officer, and that gentleman said, I really don't know.
I just found my cousin with a gunshot wound.
Hours later, authorities discover the body of an 8th victim, Christopher Roden Sr.'s older brother, Kenneth, several miles away.
Multiple shots were fired against these victims. I understand more than about 30 shots in all at these different locations.
Each one of the victims appears to have been executed. Each one of the victims appears to be shot in the head.
There were 3 small children that survived this ordeal that were found next to these lifeless bodies.
This includes a 6-month-old, a 3-year-old, and a days-old newborn. The only child belonging to any of the victims not present at the time of the murders is Hannah Roden's daughter. The 2-year-old is with her father, Edward Jake Wagner.
Pastor Phil Fulton says members of the Roden family used to attend church at Union Hill and says he knew one of the deceased victims very well.
We know that Chris and Dana had divorced some years ago, but had still remained good friends, lived close together. Very hardworking mother, loved her kids, and she would have done anything for her kids.
This was a pre-planned execution of 8 individuals. It was a sophisticated operation, and those who carried it out were trying to do everything that they could do to hinder the investigation and their prosecution.
Mike DeWine is Ohio's Attorney General. He would be elected the state's governor in 2018.
Governor DeWine immediately got the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, the top agency in the state, to come down and be right in the thick of what was happening and to start figuring this out along with deputies and the sheriff's office.
The Rodens' brutal killings rock the small county. Who could have wanted this family dead and why? The investigation is one of the most extensive in Ohio's history.
We have received over 100 tips. We've had conducted between 50 and 60 interviews, and interviews are continuing right now as we speak. There have been over 100 personnel involved in this investigation.
God, that you would help lift them up. Lord, that you would look over this community. God, that you would bless our community.
This community changed forever by unthinkable violence, pray together in solidarity.
Each of them lived full, wonderful lives, even though they were taken too soon. They were the best people to know. They were all kind and full of love. We pray for quick justice and that a tragedy of this magnitude never touches any of y'all's families.
The loved ones that I talked to days and weeks after the crimes, they just, couldn't even, how can you comprehend something like that?
But when someone takes 8 of them away from me at one time, it's hard.
Very sad day. Rough. This is the worst thing I've ever went through with. I'd like for them to find out who done it.
But days after the killings, a shocking discovery provides the first real clue in the case.
K-12 makes going back to school easy. We deliver an education that takes your child beyond the classroom. With interactive curriculum, innovative technology, and
a shocking discovery provides the first real clue in the case.
I think it's okay for us to confirm that we did find marijuana in 3 locations. These are grow operations.
The community begins to speculate that a drug cartel could have played a role, given the precise nature of the murders.
The sheriff and everybody knows that there was a grow operation of mega amounts of plants. I mean, this is a drug pipeline.
It has aspects to it of a professional hit. But I don't think it was a cartel hit or anything like that.
Fear of the unknown and just the awfulness of this crime, it was not lost on anybody.
I want to urge everyone to be under the understanding that there is a strong possibility that any individuals involved with this are armed and extremely dangerous.
Sheriff Chuck Reeder was right there by Governor Mike DeWine's side because the public clearly needed to know how much they needed to protect themselves since all these people had been murdered.
I can tell you, if you are fearful, arm yourself.
If the top law enforcement officer in the county is saying this, does he know more? Does he think that people may be in imminent danger? I mean, there's no help coming in 5 minutes. If you live in a city, that might be the case. Generally, that's not the case when you're out in these places that are more remote.
The killers are still out there, and the fear spreading through the community casts a shadow on the funeral proceedings.
We'll have more police on standby just for safety reasons. No concerns, there's no threats.
The Roden family would like to thank everyone for all the outpouring of prayers and support for their family.
Anything that shows movement of cars around that period of time, that night and that early morning, would be helpful. But it's not just limited to cars. Any other video that they think might have value.
Initially, there was not much to go with at all as far as evidence is concerned.
People's, concern as to why, what drove someone to do this or why it happened.
By the spring of 2017, authorities receive more than 800 tips and conduct more than 400 interviews. But the lack of arrests frustrates local residents, particularly once the 1-year anniversary of the killings arrives with no clear answers.
It's been hell. All the time. It's been the worst.
It's still talked about quite a bit in the local community, and it's makes you weary. Could you be next?
You came in like thieves in the night and took 8 lives. Some being children, in the most horrific way I've ever seen in my 20 plus years. We are getting closer. We will find you.
We're not in any position to charge anyone or take any case to a grand jury. But, a few weeks ago, we had a real uptick in the information.
The AG's office is not saying how these 4 people may be possibly connected to the case, but many are hoping information will lead to justice. The Attorney General and Pike County Sheriff are calling for any and all information about these people: 46-year-old George Billy Wagner III, 46-year-old Angela Wagner, 25-year-old George Wagner IV, and 24-year-old Edward Jake Wagner. Officials say Jake Wagner is the father of victim Hannah Roden's daughter.
In 2017, state investigators publicized photos of the Wagner family and said, hey, if you know anything about these folks, let us know.
The authorities stress that the Wagners have not been named suspects or people of interest in the killings.
The Wagners moved to Alaska, of all places. Obviously a bit odd to go from southeastern Ohio to a long ways away. And at the time, it was Jake had indicated he wanted to sort of shield the daughter he had with Hannah Roden from the awfulness of what had happened.
It isn't the only lead investigators are chasing.
It's scary. We're hearing all over the news about how they're investigating this place and the SWAT team's going in here and going in there.
I recall talking to the father of Dana and it was like this, I don't know what's going on. This doesn't make any sense.
I've been kind of upset at the cop from day one.
Investigators obviously were looking at everything that they had been involved with and what their histories were and their interactions were to see if maybe somebody close to the family had done this. And I do think that in that particular instance, there was a lot of grief. Like, look, we didn't do this.
I feel that every news conference that we do, that the killers are watching and they're listening and they're trying to find just as you guys are where we're at and what we're doing. And that's partly why we share no information.
At some point, you sort of say, well, if nobody's going to say anything, then we just got to get about our lives, and no more violence had happened. So I think that it was a situation of people assuming that this was sort of a targeted thing. So yeah, it did sort of die down.
Then, in November of 2018, 2.5 years after the murders, there's a major break in the case.
They did this quickly, coldly, calmly, and very carefully. But not carefully enough.
I became a medical assistant in less than 7 months. Let me show you how. You're not going to believe how easy this is.
Breaking news.
We begin with a huge break in the brutal murders of 8 members of the Roden family in Pike County.
Today we have the answer. Members of one family conspired, planned, carried out, and then allegedly covered up their violent act to wipe out members of another family.
Arrests were happening in the Roden family murders, the Pike County massacre. So I remember that day pretty vividly. Suddenly it was like, drop that, you got to go to Lexington. So our station started to send crews all over the place. It's like, go to Scioto, go to Ross County.
4 members of the Wagner family are arrested in separate locations in connection with the murders. Each face the possibility of the death penalty.
Billy, Angela, their sons, George and Jake, all charged with 8 counts of murder. And there were multiple other counts. I believe around 22 charges in all.
Other charges include conspiracy, tampering with evidence, and interception of communications.
Before accused murderer Jake Wagner entered the courtroom today, loved ones of those he and his family are charged with killing embraced in a show of solidarity. Today's arraignment ended with attorneys entering a plea of not guilty, which Wagner affirmed.
Jake Wagner's parents and older brother also plead not guilty. The community is divided on the Wagners' possible involvement in the murders.
Well, we certainly think they weren't doing their jobs.
Do people feel like they got the right folks?
Yeah, I think so. I think them running made a big deal with it, but who's to tell? Some people in my family thinks it's different people.
When they have the trial, if it's proven that they've done it, whatever they come up with, it's too good for them.
Authorities allege that the Wagners developed contingency plans in case they were caught.
They were to take revenge against anyone who went against them, including but not limited to Special Agent Scheider, Sheriff Reeder, and Attorney General Mike DeWine. There was also discussions of how they would try to make an escape.
I've seen their work. I know what they're capable of. We've been very cautious, making sure that security plans have been in place in my home and others.
For the Rodens' loved ones, the road to justice is far from over.
As time went on and you started to learn in some of these court filings, there was just cameras that have been tampered with, allegedly, these types of things, silencers, it started to put some of the pieces of the puzzle together.
We believe the evidence will show that suspects spent months planning the crimes. They studied the victims' habits and their routines. They knew the layouts of their homes. They knew where they slept. And then after executing each victim, we believe the evidence will further show that the suspects tampered with the evidence, such as the victims' phones and the surveillance cameras on their properties.
Frederica Wagner, Billy Wagner's mother, is also accused of trying to cover up the crimes. So is Angela Wagner's mother, Rita Newcomb, who is a notary.
Ms. Newcomb was charged with 3 counts of forgery regarding 3 separate custody documents that are at issue in this case.
Members of the Rodin family claim that Jake tried to get Hannah to sign over her rights to their daughter weeks before the killings, but she refused.
At that point, investigators had said, hey, listen, this is about the custody of a child. Much to the disbelief of many people, it was a domino that fell that sort of put things into a clearer focus. And we talked to Frederica, and she absolutely maintained the family's innocent.
I don't know who killed those people. I didn't know them.
Authorities seized 2 bulletproof vests purchased by Frederica Wagner, generating a new inquiry.
I bought them after the crime, after the tragedy, 2 weeks later. And we proved that.
But when Frederica's case was being heard and there were conversations and closed-door meetings with attorneys, they decided to effectively let that case go.
Then, in late 2019, news breaks that a member of the family has taken a plea deal.
No, I just feel that it's not a good Christian thing to lie, and I couldn't have put it no more.
Newcomb pleads guilty to 1 misdemeanor count of obstructing official business, and she confirms what investigators suspected. She hadn't signed her name on the custody documents. The 5 other felony charges against her are dismissed.
She had been asked to say that it was her by her daughter, who feared that to tell otherwise would put her in jeopardy.
Prosecutors have to wait more than a year for the case's next major breakthrough.
I am guilty, Your Honor.
On April 22nd, 2021, the 5-year anniversary of the killings, Jake Wagner pleads guilty to 8 counts of aggravated murder.
160 years of prison terms that are not included in the consecutive terms of life imprisonment without parole.
Jake Wagner admitted that he killed 5.
Anyone with $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans may qualify for help from National Debt Relief. Minimum payments could literally
5 members of the Rodin family, and he shot a 6th, leaving open the question, obviously, of who killed the remaining 3. And in doing so, the deal he worked out with prosecutors was that he would agree to testify against his dad and mom and his older brother, as long as the death penalty was removed from their cases. But it was a huge turning point. This happened. Maybe somebody else is going to do the same.
5 months later, Angela Wagner also accepts a plea deal. But this one is different from her youngest sons. Her confession alleges that she didn't kill any of the Rodin family members herself.
The 8 murder charges against Angela were removed when she pleaded guilty in September.
She'll be behind bars for 30 years, but avoids the death penalty.
Based solely and strictly upon the defendant's fulfilling her agreement to testify truthfully in each and every of the other co-defendants' trials.
George IV, the oldest brother, his attorneys are also claiming that he didn't shoot anybody. And that's what's been stated in these confessions. And now, of course, it's taking a long time for the court proceedings to unfold. So you can only imagine what the family, the loved ones of the Rodin family, have been going through.
As of February 2022, the legal cases against Jake's father, Billy Wagner, and his older brother, George IV, are still ongoing.
It's just so incomprehensible. And you just think from a humanistic standpoint, the tragedy of it all, the loved ones who are the survivors, the family that was devastated and still devastated. How can anyone ever understand what took place? It will never leave me, for sure. It's obviously very hard for the communities of Piketon, for Waverly, for Pike County writ large, because that's not something anyone wants associated with where they live.
Your license plate's Pike County, and all you're known for is the murders. Now is the sheriff crooked and all that. They don't paint a pretty picture.
This community needs to heal and get that off the mind because it's been on there a long time.